Welcome to Online Calligraphy. I'm Mary-Jane, and I'm going to be your instructor for this course. In this short series of videos, you are going to acquire the basic knowledge you need to learn how to do calligraphy. For example, in the first video, I'm going to show you how to insert the nib into the pen holder. Then we're going to learn how to load the reservoir and how to make the ink flow out of the reservoir onto your paper, which is not always as easy as it might sound. You're also going to learn the importance of keeping the pen at a certain angle on your paper. We're going to learn about the guidelines that we use to draw our letters on. And then we're going to learn about the ductus, which talks about the sequence of the strokes that we use to form our letters. Hello, and welcome to Calligraphy Basics Video 1. Here's a shot of the material that we're going to be using throughout this course, a browse nib that's 3 millimeters wide and a wooden pen holder. As I take the nib out of its packaging, you can see that the edge of the nib is cut on an oblique angle. This one happens to be for a right-handed calligrapher. If I were left-handed, I would use a nib with the angle cut in the opposite direction. As I turn it around to get a profile shot, you can see that there's a space here between the nib itself and the clip that piggybacks it. This space is going to be our reservoir for our ink. As I pick up the pen holder, you can see that there's a sort of cross in the end of it. I want to be very careful not to insert my nib into that cross. As you can see, I am going to make sure that the rounded part of my nib marries or comes right up against the rounded part of the pen holder like this. There, I've inserted it. I'm just going to double check and we're fine. Another thing I'd like to point out is that the end of the clip must be a little bit in from the edge of the nib. You see there's a millimeter or two there. That's very important. Another glimpse at my reservoir. And your nib is mounted in your pen holder. We're ready to start. Hello again, and welcome to Calligraphy Basics Video 2. In this video, we're going to see how to get that ink to flow out of your pen. As I mentioned in the previous video, we're going to place the ink in the space that's between the nib itself and the clip. And to do so, I use a brush. I very rarely dip my pen directly into my ink bottle. There are several ways to get the ink to flow from your nib. One of them is going to be to wiggle the pen back and forth very discreetly in what is going to be the beginning of your stroke. The second way is to apply a bit of pressure, release, and then draw the pen in the direction of the beginning of your stroke. Lastly, when you put your pen to paper, wait for a fraction of a second before you begin to draw your letter. That will give the ink a little bit of time to get itself into starting position. Look, in this stroke right here, I didn't wait and the ink didn't come out in the beginning. So in the last of the thin strokes that I'm drawing here, I wait just a fraction of a second before I move the pen and the ink flows correctly. Welcome to Calligraphy Basics Video 3. Here we're going to talk about pen angle and X height. Let's start with pen angle. In this beginning course, we're going to use a pen angle of 45 degrees. If you're not working on gridded paper, use a protractor to find the angle of 45 degrees. Once I've loaded the ink into my pen, and I've got my ink flowing on a scrap piece of paper, I am going to line the edge of my nib up with that line of 45 degrees, and then I just move my hand over a little bit, keeping the pen nib at the angle of 45 degrees, and then I just trace my straight lines. you'll notice that you'll find that 45-degree angle at the beginning, at the end of each of these strokes. Now, I'm going to use the letter E to show how that 45-degree angle is going to create the thin and the thick strokes in the letter. There, the E is finished, and now with my pencil, I'm indicating the two thick strokes in the letter E, and now you can see the three thin parts of the letter E. All right, let's move on to X height. X height then refers to the height of a letter that doesn't have an ascender or a descender, such as the letter E. In calligraphy, weight refers to the relationship between the width of our nib and the height of our letters. In our course, the height of our letters is going to be 5 times the width of our nib. So to determine the height of my letters, I can either use the staircase method, or I can multiply the width of my nib, which is 3 millimeters, by the number specified for our particular style of writing, which is 5. Now, if I were to do the mathematics, 3 millimeters multiplied by 5 equals a letter height of 15 millimeters. Or if you happen to prefer to work in inches, that's about 5/8 of an inch. Welcome to Calligraphy Basics, Video 4, where we're going to talk about guidelines. Essentially, guidelines are the lines that we generally draw with a pencil and that help us to create letters that are the correct height. The most important of the 4 lines is going to be the baseline, the line on which we place the letters. An X height letter is going to be placed between the baseline and the waistline. When you have letters that have ascenders or descenders, then obviously you're going to have them go up or down to the respective ascender or descender lines. Look, I'm going to show you what I mean. Here I'm drawing the letter N, an X height letter, and so I'm placing it between the baseline and the waistline. Next, I'm doing an H. An H has an ascender, so it is being placed between the ascender line and the baseline. And now, on the contrary, I'm doing a letter that has a descender, the Y, so it's going between the waistline and the descender's line. When we cook a dish for the very first time, we need to refer to the recipe. And in calligraphy, it's somewhat the same. When we draw a letter, we need to know where to start and in what direction we go. For example, let's look at the N that I've just drawn here. I started at the top, came down on the left-hand side. That is my first stroke. I did a short upstroke, moved over to the right, and came down for the second stroke. That then is my recipe or my ductus. Generally speaking, we draw our strokes in calligraphy the same way as we read, from left to right and from top to bottom. So keep in mind that the ductus is the direction, the number, and the sequence of strokes that work together to create a letter. Welcome back to Crea Tuto. In this short video, we're going to talk a bit about supplies, the supplies that you'll need to get started in calligraphy. Now, there's no need to go out and break the bank because many of these things you probably have lying around the house already. For example, for practicing, I find that layout paper is just perfect. It's not very expensive, the ink doesn't bleed on it, and it's very smooth, slightly transparent as well. You're going to need a pen holder. The ones that I've photographed here are suitable for most nibs. These pointed nibs are suitable for doing pointed pen calligraphy, which I'm not going to touch on in this course. The nibs that we will be using are oblique nibs, and in this photo I'm showing you that they are available in a wide variety of sizes. They are also available for left-handed or right-handed calligraphers. And if you want to, you could use a traditional calligraphy tool such as a calame or a quill pen. You will of course need pencils and a sharpener. Now in terms of pencils, I like to have handy an ordinary HB pencil, which dulls relatively quickly, but it erases well. On the other hand, the 2H pencil doesn't dull so quickly, but it tends to leave marks on our paper, which are harder to erase. When you're choosing your eraser, make sure you pick up a nice soft eraser that's going to leave your paper nice and clean once you've finished erasing your work. It's good to have two different rulers handy, one with a clear plastic ruler that makes reading the gradients easy. You'll also want a metal ruler, one that you'll use when you're using your cutter to cut paper. You don't want to take any slices out of your plastic ruler with your paper cutter. A T-square is useful for when we're drawing our guidelines, as is a protractor. Now, when we're finished our calligraphy, obviously we have to clean things up. So having an old toothbrush is very useful for cleaning our nibs. It helps us to get in under the reservoir and make sure that the nib stays clean and therefore will last longer. I have a ton of rags hanging around in my workshop because we always have little messes to clean up. The ink splatters, we get some on our fingers, so keep rags or paper towels close by. I tend to prefer rags because I seem to think they're more ecological. It's recycling old clothes, old tea towels, etc. And of course, water. We need it for diluting, for cleaning, and for drinking when you get dry. Just to resume what we've talked about, I'm putting a list here of the basic supplies that you can either print or copy so that you'll know what you need to have near you when you're doing calligraphy. If you would like to take advantage of special pricing for our other calligraphy classes, the Simple Gothic Hand or Italics Calligraphy with a parallel pen, use this code DIRCODE in the purchase box. Take care. We'll see you again soon for another Creatuto video. Hello, Creatuto is pleased to add this bonus video that is going to show you how to make walnut hull ink. Now, it's relatively simple. In terms of ingredients, all you need are water and the walnut hull. Here I am showing you a picture of the one that I use. What you're going to do is put 35 milliliters of water in your little recipient, add the walnut hull, and stir it up really well. There's really nothing difficult to this whatsoever. Once it's well stirred, you're going to be able to use it in your calligraphy tools, be it a metallic nib like this one that I'm using. I'm using a 4mm Browse oblique nib to write the word black. I am going to speed the video up just a little bit here so that it doesn't take too long to show you. What I want you to pay attention to is the difference in the tonality of the ink as it runs through the pen. Obviously, at the beginning of the word black, I've got a lot of ink on my nib, and so the writing seems to be darker. And as I get towards the end of the word, there's a bit less ink in my nib, and it looks to be lighter. And I absolutely love this sort of effect that we get with it. Now I'm moving along and using a calame. I am just dipping the calame right into my little recipient of ink and writing. Now obviously I don't have a reservoir here with my calame, so I have to keep going back and dipping into, I have to keep going back to get some more ink onto my calame, my writing tool. And so you'll see that the differences in the shades of the ink is different in the word Friday. It's sort of dark and light and dark and light and dark and light. Now what you're going to see here is that I also use the ink in my parallel pen. So what I'm doing here is taking the pen apart to get to the reservoir. I am going to I'm going to put a little bit of ink into a syringe, and I'm just going to fill the reservoir with the needle that I've got on my syringe. Now my what's the word? My cartridge had a bit of ink left in it still, so I wasn't able to put a whole lot of it in. So I'm just putting it back together, trying to not make a mess and get ink all over the place, which happens. Wiping it up a little bit, and then I'm just going to put the pen back together, and I'm going to show you 2 other little words. Now, once I've got it all together, I'm just going to go get my little scrap piece of paper, because obviously I've got a little bit of the previous ink that's left in my pen, so I'm just going to get that all out, get my walnut hull ink running through the parallel pen until it's satisfactory. And now I'm just going to run along and grab the same piece of paper that I was working on, and I'm going to write the word Gothic in Gothic letters, obviously, with the parallel pen. And then I'm going to move along and write the word italics with the same pen. Here you see that there's less of a, what's the word I'm looking for? A nuance. There's less difference. Not as much difference in the shading of the letters with the parallel pen. There's your introduction to making your own walnut hull ink. Now you can use these inks in our calligraphy classes that we have here on Udemy, simple Gothic hand calligraphy or italics calligraphy using the parallel pen, and you, as a subscriber to the Calligraphy Basics course, can take advantage of this code to get our other courses at amazing prices. So why wait? There, we'll see you again soon on Creatudo. Bye-bye. Hello, and welcome to this Calligraphy The Basics follow-up video. What we're going to do now is to put some of that theory into practice. Get yourself a couple of pencils or markers and tape them together so that we can imitate a wide writing surface, like I'm showing you here with the pencils, and then with the markers. The first thing we're going to talk about is pen angle. Now, if I put my markers to the paper horizontally, I am imitating a 0-degree angle. So horizontal means 0-degree angle. And if I turn them around and I put them on the paper vertically, then I'm imitating a 90-degree angle. So vertical is 90. So you get a wide pen stroke when your pen is at a 0-degree angle, and you get a very thin pen stroke when your pen is at a 90-degree angle. Let's look at what happens when we put our pen at a 45-degree angle. 45 is, of course, halfway between horizontal and vertical. So look, I'm putting my pen on this 45-degree line, and then I'm just moving my pen over, keeping the pen at that same angle, and I'm pulling the pen straight towards me. And if you notice, part of the pen is lower than the other part. And here, if I line them up, I'm going to find my 45-degree angle at the top and the bottom of every one of these strokes. Okay, now let's use this 45-degree angle in a letter stroke. The first part of this stroke is going to be on a bit of a slant or a slope. The middle part is going to be straight or vertical, and the last part is too on a bit of a slant or a slope. Let's just look at that letter stroke again. Slant, straight, and slant. And if we analyze this stroke, we'll see that the slope parts are wider than the straight part. Moving along now, let's take a little bit of a look at letter height. The letter height in Gothic letters is 5 times the pen width. So here I'm just drawing 5 little steps to see how high my letters should be. 5 of them, piled one on top of the other. And with a ruler now, I'm just going to take the time to draw my letter height line and my baseline. Here I'm going to draw the letter N, starting with a slope, a straight part, and a slope. Now I'm going to go up to my letter height line and repeat the same stroke. And there we have the letter N. I'm just closing them so that you can see what the strokes finished look like. N. Now give me a second. I'm going to draw a couple of more lines, just measuring the height. I'm going to draw a couple of more lines and we'll look at a few more letters. So being careful to keep my pen at 45 degrees, I'm doing the same basic stroke, putting a dot above it, and that's my I. Here I'm redoing the N, just so that you can see that the N is based on the stroke of the I. And if I redo the last stroke of the N, watch, that's the N, and if I redo that last stroke, then I'm going to create the M. Now, of course, using two pens or markers or pencils taped together is fine for getting the gist of things, but it's not very much fun. So let's move on and use a calame. A calame is just a piece of bamboo that has been cut off at a flat angle. And you see I can get the same sort of strokes as I did with my two pencils taped together. If I put it at 0 degrees, I get a wide stroke. If I put it at 90 degrees, I get a thin stroke. And if I do something between the two, 45 degrees, then I'm going to get my medium width strokes with my 45 degrees on top and at the bottom of the stroke, as you can see here. With my calame, I'm doing my 5 little steps to get the height of my letters. And I'm now going to draw the lines so that I can demonstrate some Gothic letters to you using the calame. So here we go. We're going to start with the basic I letter group. These are all the letters that are based on the letter I, which I've just done. I'm now showing you the N and the M, which are just the I strokes repeated with a little bridge at the top of them. And in the same group, we can do the U, the V, and the W. It's exactly the same thing. It's the I stroke that are connected with a bridge, this time at the bottom. There's the U. Next is the V that just has the second I stroke cut off a little bit. And the W is more or less a U and the second part of a V. Now just let me draw some more lines and we'll do some more letters. These letters too are part of the I letter group. This one is the T, which is just a little bit taller than our other letters. Here is the Y that has a bit of a tail, obviously, that's going to go underneath our baseline. Here we have the R, which is the I stroke with the beginning of a second I stroke. And this one, believe it or not, this is the X as it would have been done in the Middle Ages, in the Gothic letters. Now we're going to do some letters still based on the I stroke, but which are a bit taller, like the L. Here is the B. We'll have the F. Oh, no, this one's not the F. It's the K first. There we go with the F. And the last one is going to be the H. I'm hesitating. Yes, it's going to be the H. There are still 2 letters left in the I group. The first one is going to be the J, and then we're going to use the J stroke to form the P. Now we're going to move on into a second group of letters, and these letters are all based on the O form, the O shape. So starting with the O, moving along to the Q, and the G, which is the O on the top, and then the bottom stroke is much like the Y that we've already seen. We're going to do the C and the E, which are the O strokes just not finished. And we have the D that's left too in this group. So there, you've seen the letters based on the I stroke and the letters based on the O stroke. And now as soon as I draw another set of lines, I'm going to show you the 3 letters that are not yet on my sheet. There's the A, the Z, and the S. So first is the A, which is sort of a combination of the I stroke and the O stroke. And then we have the Z, which is just a series of waves with a diagonal stroke in the middle. And the last one is the S, 2 crescents in the opposite direction and 2 little waves on the top and the bottom. And if you'd like to develop your passion for calligraphy, don't hesitate to look for another course that I have on Udemy that's called Simple Gothic Hand. I'm sure you'll love it. It's a study of the small letters, the capital letters, and there's a little project in there too, just to help you get the letters under your belt and into your hand. There, I hope you've enjoyed this and that it's been helpful to you. Take care, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. Hello and welcome back to Crea Tuto, where our motto is quite simply creative lifestyle. Today what I'm going to do is show you the simple Gothic hand calligraphy. I'm going to do a demonstration, and what I'm going to do it with is Ecoline ink that I'm showing you here. It's a dark gray color, a Browse broad nib or an oblique nib, which is 3 millimeters wide. I'm working on a set of guidelines that I've printed from the course, and you'll notice that my letters in this hand, in this type of calligraphy, are very vertical. They're not at all slanted. They are very much perpendicular to the baseline on which I'm writing. You'll notice too that these letters are very angular. They're not at all rounded either. That's part of the Gothic style from the Middle Ages. You'll see that I'm using a brush to load the ink into my reservoir. I don't like to dip my pen directly into the ink bottle because I don't think it's a very clean way to write, simply because sometimes you go down too far when you do that and you get a bit of ink on your pen holder, and once you've got ink on the pen holder, then obviously it's on your fingers, and once you've got ink on your fingers, it inevitably ends up on your paper. So I like to load my brush, or load my nib with the brush. Now this is a simplified version of the Gothic letters. There are some very, very intricate, very complicated Gothic letters, but I always like to start calligraphy beginners with this writing, with this style of writing, because it's relatively simple to master. You'll notice that the letters are quite close together. That is also very typical of this Gothic style of calligraphy that dates, as I said, from the Middle Ages. Most of the, in spite of it being a simplified version of Gothic, most of my uppercase stems are doubled. You see they've got a double stem to them, just to embellish them a little bit. I'm doing my very best to make the ink that I've got in my reservoir do right to the end of this word, hand. And you'll notice that the letters are getting lighter and lighter because when the reservoir is full, and there's quite a lot of ink into it, the letters appear to be quite dark. And as you work through the ink, and there's less in the reservoir, the letters become much lighter. Just to the left of my nib there, you'll see that I have a small, very light pencil mark because I wanted to try to center the words in this sentence that I'm writing as best possible without actually measuring and doing it properly. So this first word is enjoy, and as I just mentioned, I've got a double stem in the uppercase E, enjoy. I'm going to go back and load more ink into my pen. You'll notice that the letters are broken down. For the most part, I work from left to right and from top to bottom. The letters are broken down. You do them in a certain order, in a certain direction, and we call that the ductus. It comes from a Latin verb that means to drive or to arrive at something. Spacing is also very important when you do calligraphy, and you'll see that right here I was concentrated on something else and I've left too much space after the E of the and the B of the word beauty that I'm just starting to write. Because this is a rough copy, I would go back and correct that in the next copy. Guidelines are really, really important in keeping your letters uniform, the right height, and well proportioned. Now, if you happen to be left-handed, you might want to turn your paper around so that you work with the paper horizontally. That's perfectly acceptable. You know, calligraphy was invented by right-handed people for right-handed people. Left-handers didn't really have much of a place in middle-aged society. But if you want to just turn your page around to one side so that your hand is not dragging through it, if you're left-handed, through your wet ink, then that's perfectly acceptable. Sometimes when I'm in classes, I even let the kids do the letters. If they're left-handed, I let them do the letters in a different order just because it's a bit easier for them. So enjoy the beauty of becoming. The word becoming that I'm just writing here is a bit low on your screen, but I think you should be able to see everything, even the end of the G at the end of the word. I should have moved my paper up a little bit, but I didn't. Enjoy the beauty of becoming. In life, right from day one, right from the day of our birth, we're becoming something. First we become a kid, a toddler, then a kid, then an adolescent, a teenager, and then an adult, and then perhaps a parent or not, and a professional, and then we're always becoming something. Maybe you're in the act of becoming a calligrapher. And if you are in the act of becoming a calligrapher, perhaps you'd like to run over to Udemy, and you'll find this simple Gothic hand calligraphy course here. That's the link that you would use to find it. And if you want to take it, you can use this code and get a discount on the price. So thank you very much for having joined me in this Creatuto demonstration. Hello and welcome to this Creatuto video demonstration. I'm Mary-Jane Roussel, your humble instructor. At Creatuto, we have a very simple motto. It's creative lifestyle. And so today our creative lifestyle is going to take us to a demonstration of italic style calligraphy. You'll see that I'm going to use a 3.8 millimeter parallel pen for this demonstration. It's the one with the green cap. And you'll notice that I've got a red band on my pen handle. That's so that I know what color ink I've got in my pen. I'm writing on a sheet of guidelines that I've printed from the course. You'll notice, of course, that the vertical guidelines are indeed not vertical. They're slanted a little bit, aren't they? But that's sort of typical, or very typical, of the italic style. My pen is at an angle of 45 degrees. And my X height, the height of a normal lowercase letter, like the A or the N, is 5 pen widths. Italics. The ascenders and the descenders are a little bit shorter. We're going to add 4 more pen widths for them, for the ascenders and the descenders. Now what I've taken are 3 words that are often said together: live, love, and laugh, but I'm just changing it a little bit. The word live with an uppercase L, very well behaved, we'll say. I'm changing this middle word to learn because I think that it's very important to continue to learn throughout our life, not just during our young years and our adolescent years and our early adult years when we're meant to be students, but all through our life. It's important to keep learning new things. It keeps the brain cells alive and healthy. So learn is my middle word, and my uppercase L has a long sweep on the horizontal stroke, as does this one. And here I'm just adding a few more embellishments. One thing about the italic style of calligraphy is that you can have an awful lot of fun with embellishments. Live, learn, and laugh. Here at the descender part or portion of my G, you'll see that I'm having fun too with a little bit of flourishing. Live, learn, laugh. That's our motto for the day. And if living, learning, and laughing is tempting, why don't you join us on this course? If you run over to Udemy here, you'll find that there's a link. This is the link that will help you find the course right away. This code will even give you a discount on the course. So I'll look forward to seeing you there. In this module, I am simply going to do a demonstration of another style of traditional calligraphy, which is called French cursive in English, and in French is called la ronde, round, because of the roundness of the letter shapes. In calligraphy, as in absolutely any endeavor, in order to succeed, it's important to have fun while you're working, and believe me, I sure do, as I do the calligraphy and then create the videos for these courses. So what we're going to do here is have a look at the video. You'll see that I'm working with a Pilot's parallel pen. It's the one with the yellowy cap that is a 2.4 millimeter width. The nib is 2.4 millimeters. I'm writing on very basic printer paper onto which I've printed guidelines. You'll notice as I'm writing that the X height of these letters is smaller than the height of the ascenders and the descenders. You'll see that as soon as I get to the H in French. This style of writing was used in French schools up until the middle of the 20th century to teach students cursive writing or attached writing. You'll see that the letters are perpendicular to our baseline, and they are certainly, certain letters are attached one to the next one. French cursive. Okay, so now I'll just skip down a line. The N, uppercase N, and here in just a second I'm writing the word never, and you're going to see here that the E and the R I do in almost one stroke, and then I'm going to go back and finish the E. Never. You'll see that I'm going to do that same sort of movement in this next word, which is underestimate. You'll see that I'm going to join the E and the R and the E and the S. That letter D, you'll notice that it doesn't go up to touch the ascenders line. There was the E and the R done together, and here is the E and the S done together. The T just barely passes the X height. Never underestimate. Calligraphy is really a wonderful exercise for relaxing. It also improves your hand precision, and it's almost a meditative activity. And that's one of the reasons why I like to write inspirational sort of sentences. Never underestimate the importance of having fun. As I'm writing this, or as I'm dictating this audio for the video, we are just 8 students shy of the 20,000 benchmark in this course. 20,000, it's incredible, it's hard to believe. I really thank you very, very sincerely for your support. And if you like these courses, don't hesitate to give them a good rating at the end. That obviously helps them to be put up in front of other people like you. Never underestimate the importance of having fun. In this next line, you'll see that I'm going to have 2 lowercase f's, and I just love doing them because they go right from the ascenders line all the way down to the descenders line. Look at that one. Never underestimate the importance of having fun. This round or French cursive writing has lovely letters with little loops. Look at the H's here and the loop of the F too. You'll see it here in the G that I'm just about to do, the descender loop. And another one of these great F's. You have to do that on a nice expiration. Breathe out when you're doing a long line like that. There we go. Never underestimate the importance of having fun. If you would like to have fun and do some more of these courses, don't hesitate. There's a course on Udemy here that's called A Tour de France in French Cursive. In this In this course, you'll learn all of the lowercase and then uppercase letters. And then afterwards, I'm going to take you on a virtual tour of France. And by that, I mean that we're going to write in calligraphy the names of cities, towns, and villages in alphabetical order, starting with A for Avignon, and then B for Bordeaux, and we'll go all the way through the alphabet and end with Z for Zoza. Each lesson is going to include, obviously, the calligraphy, but also a few interesting facts about the place that we're visiting, as well as a photo. And I'm very proud to say that I've taken a very good part of the photos myself. If that interests you, there's a code that will get you a discount. Type -10, all in uppercase and all attached, and you'll find a discount for that price. So, thanks for joining me. Thanks for your support once again, and we'll see you next time.